There are moments that rearrange your entire understanding of how a night was supposed to go. I had been performing with the Crescent Company for 14 months. Small venues, respectable crowds, the kind of circuit that serious performers use as a stepping stone and then try not to talk about once they have stepped. I was good at my job, and I did it without complaint, and I had spent the better part of 2 years convincing myself that this was enough. Then Corinna Vale walked into my dressing room at the Cavendish Pavilion on a Thursday evening and said, in the voice that had made her the most respected ringmistress in the performance world, "You're performing beside me tonight." Not a question, not a request, the kind of statement that arrives already decided. I had not spoken to her in 26 months. The last time I had seen Corinna Vale, I was 23 years old, and she had looked at me across a rehearsal floor at the end of an audition, and I had thought, with a clarity that was almost frightening, this woman is going to change everything. And then I received a rejection letter, and I spent 26 months trying to unknow that feeling. This is the story of the Thursday evening she walked into my dressing room, and everything that came after the night she could not pretend she had forgotten me. Let me go back, because context matters here. 2 years before that Thursday, I had been a different version of myself. Not worse, different. Hungrier in a way that felt both motivating and slightly desperate. I had been performing on regional circuits for 3 years, and I was good, and I knew I was good, and I had spent 3 years waiting for the moment when good would be enough to get me somewhere worth going. The Vale Grand Circus was not just somewhere worth going. It was the destination. Corinna Vale had inherited a mid-sized touring company from her predecessor, and spent 6 years converting it into the most technically rigorous, artistically demanding, commercially successful performance company in the country. She had done this through a combination of obsessive quality standards, an absolute intolerance for mediocrity, and the specific kind of vision that made people who worked with her feel they were participating in something that mattered. The audition list was competitive. I had submitted my materials twice before they called me back. I drove 11 hours to the audition city. I had been practicing the same sequence for 8 weeks, and I performed it on a Tuesday morning in their main rehearsal space, in front of 4 evaluators and one person who stood at the back of the room with her arms crossed and her expression giving nothing away. Corinna Vale. I had known she would be there. The Vale Grand was known for the ringmistress's personal involvement in every hire. I had prepared for being watched. I had not prepared for what it felt like when she was the one doing the watching. She was 32 then, and she had the kind of presence that is difficult to account for in practical terms. Not just authority, not just physical bearing, something more specific than either. She watched the way a person watches when they are not merely evaluating, but genuinely seeing, and being seen by her, with that quality of attention, was something that my body registered before my mind had caught up. I performed for 22 minutes. She watched all of it without moving. When I came down, the evaluators had questions. Standard technical things. I answered them. And then there was a pause, and Corinna Vale walked from the back of the room to where I was standing, and she said, "Where did you develop the silk release sequence in the 3rd section?" I told her. She asked another question. I answered. She asked a third. The evaluators had stopped writing. We talked for 11 minutes, not about the audition, about approach, about how I thought about aerial work conceptually, about a technique disagreement I had with my previous director that I probably should not have volunteered but did, because she asked a question that made the honest answer feel necessary. She listened to all of it. At the end, she said, "Thank you for coming." That was all. I drove back 11 hours and I waited. The rejection letter arrived 3 weeks later. Not what we are looking for at this time. Standard language, impersonal, the kind of letter designed to say nothing while seeming to say something. I read it twice. I put it in a drawer. I went back to my regional circuit, and I told myself, "You were not good enough. You were almost good enough, and almost is the worst kind of distance." If you have ever received a rejection for something you wanted more than you could comfortably admit, tell me in the comments, because that letter did something to me that took much longer than it should have to stop doing. Stay with me, because the reason that letter arrived is the part of this story that changes everything. 26 months later, the Crescent Company was booked into the Cavendish Pavilion for a 4-night run. The Cavendish was the largest venue in the city, and it was booked in a split residency. Crescent had the East Hall for 4 nights, and the Vale Grand Circus had the main stage for 10. I knew this when the booking came through. I knew it with the specific, low-grade dread of someone who has spent 26 months rearranging their understanding of a person and is now being asked to exist in the same building as them. I told myself, the main stage and the East Hall are separate wings, different entrances, different backstage corridors, different dressing rooms. The building was large enough that I could work my 4 nights and leave without a single encounter. I was wrong about that too. The first evening of our run, I was coming back from a technical check in the main corridor. I had taken a wrong turn through an unfamiliar part of the building, which I was blaming entirely on the venue's inadequate signage, and I turned a corner and nearly walked directly into someone. She caught my elbow. I looked up. Corinna Vale was 6 inches from my face, one hand on my arm, looking at me with an expression I had not seen before and cannot fully describe. Something between recognition and something rawer, something that had been kept somewhere for a very long time. "Lena," she said. It was the first time she had used my name. At the audition, I had been Ms. Calloway from start to finish. "Miss Vale," I said, because that was the professional choice, and I was making every professional choice available to me at that particular moment. She looked at me for a moment. "You're performing here," she said. "East Hall," I said. "Crescent Company. 4 nights." Something moved through her face. "How long have you been with the Crescent?" 14 months. She was quiet for a moment, looking at me in a way I could feel, but did not entirely understand. "Come and watch the run-through tomorrow morning," she said. "Main stage, 10 o'clock. It was not phrased as an invitation. It was the other kind. I said, "All right." She let go of my elbow. She walked away down the corridor. I stood at the corner and thought, I have absolutely no idea what just happened. But something just happened. I went to the run-through. The Vale Grand in full rehearsal was, I do not have a compact word for it. Extraordinary is true but insufficient. The level of technical precision in that room, the density of skill across 40 performers, the quality of the rigging, and the coordination, and the sheer intentionality of every element. It was the most sophisticated performance operation I had ever seen. I sat in the house seats and watched, and did not speak. She ran the rehearsal from the floor, moving, adjusting, occasionally ascending into the rigging herself to demonstrate something with a physicality that made clear she had not stopped performing, even though she spent most of her time directing. Her instructions were concise, her corrections were immediate. The performers around her moved with the particular focused ease of people who trusted the structure they were working inside. When the rehearsal broke at noon, she came and sat in the seat beside me. Not the seat in front, not the seat behind, the one directly to my left. "What did you see?" she said. I told her. Honestly, including the things I thought were extraordinary, and the one sequencing choice in the third act that I would have made differently, and almost did not say, but then said anyway, because she was asking, and I had learned, at the audition 2 years ago, that she asked questions she actually wanted answered. She listened to all of it. Then she said, "Why are you with the Crescent?" I looked at her. "Because you did not want me," I said. Straight, because there was no other honest way to say it. Something happened in her face that I did not immediately understand. "I sent you an offer," she said. The room went very quiet around me. "You sent me a rejection letter," I said. She held my gaze. "No," she said. "I did not. Stay with me right now. Stay with me, because what she says in the next 30 seconds is the sentence that restructures everything I thought I understood about the last 26 months. Keep watching." She was very still. "I sent you an offer," she said again. Careful, precise, The way she said things she needed to be sure had been heard correctly. The day after the audition, before the formal evaluation period ended, I asked my company manager at the time to contact you with a preliminary offer and follow up with the formal paperwork. I thought about the drawer in my apartment where I still had the letter. I had kept it. I do not know why. Some people keep rejection letters the way other people keep scars. Not because they want to look at them, but because throwing them away feels like pretending they were not real. I received a rejection letter, I said. Standard language. Not what we are looking for at this time. Something moved through Corinna Vale's face that I would later understand as the specific expression she wore when something she had believed for a long time was being quietly dismantled in front of her. Marin, she said. Not to me. To some interior calculation I was watching happen in real time. Who is Marin? I said. My company manager at the time, she said. She left the Vale Grand 8 months ago. A pause. Under circumstances that now make considerably more sense. I sat very still. She sent you a rejection, she said. Without my knowledge. Without my authorization. Why would she do that? I said, though I was already beginning to understand the shape of it. Corinna looked at me for a long moment. Because she saw what I was not yet willing to admit I was feeling, she said, and she decided to manage it. The room was very quiet. I thought about 26 months, the 11-hour drive home, the drawer, the 14 months with the Crescent Company, telling myself that almost was the worst kind of distance. I thought you did not want me, I said. I know, she said. I thought you chose not to come. We looked at each other. Corinna, I said. It was the first time I had used her name. It came out before I could make a more professional choice. She did not correct it. I owe you a conversation I should have initiated the moment I realized you were in this building, she said. But first, she paused. I want you to perform with us tonight. I stared at her. One night, she said. Main stage, full show. There is a solo aerial spot in the second act that has been unfilled for 3 weeks because the performer we hired was injured in rehearsal. Her voice was even, but underneath it, something was not. I want you in it. I should have had you in it 2 years ago. That is a significant thing to ask, I said. Yes, she said. I know. I thought about the East Hall, the Crescent Company's 4-night run, the sensible, professional, uncomplicated choice. What time do I need to be in costume? I said. Something in her face, small, controlled, the first version of relief, shifted. 7, she said. Come at 6. I want to walk you through the rigging myself. I told my director at Crescent I would be performing a guest spot with the Vale Grand that evening. He was quiet for a moment. Then, did Corinna Vale personally ask you? Yes, I said. He was quiet for another moment. Go, he said. Obviously. I went. She was in the rigging bay at 6 o'clock when I arrived, in rehearsal clothes with her coat over the top, and she walked me through the rig with the same focused, technical precision she had brought to every instruction I had watched her give that morning. She explained the sequencing, the cue structure, the specific characteristics of the Vale Grand's silk setup that differed from what I was used to. She corrected my anchor position on the preliminary hang. Not with words, she reached up and adjusted the connection with a precise, certain touch. There, she said. There, I said. She stepped back and looked at me for a moment. You have a question, she said. Several, I said. The one I cannot stop thinking about. How long did you believe I had walked away? She was quiet. From the week after the audition, she said. When Marin told me you had declined the offer. She told you I declined. Yes. You believed her. Something complicated moved through her face. She was my company manager for 4 years. I had no reason not to. A pause. I also, she stopped, considered. I also found it plausible that you might not want to come. The audition was more than a professional interaction. I was aware of that. I thought perhaps you had been aware of it too, and had made a decision based on that awareness. "What decision did you think I made?" I said. She held my gaze. "That proximity to me was not something you wanted," she said. I looked at her, at the absolute composure with which she said it. How practiced that composure was. How long it had been in use. "You have been thinking that for 26 months, I said. "Yes," she said. "That is not what I would have decided," I said. She held very still. "Lena," she said. "That is not what I would have decided," I said again. She took a breath, looked at the rigging, back at me. "We have a show in 45 minutes, she said. "Can we continue this after?" "Yes," I said. "You're performing beside me tonight," she said. "The aerial spot is in the second act. But I also want you on stage for the opening sequence, beside me." "That is not a solo spot," I said. "No," she said, "it is not. The Vale Grand show was, I have performed in many shows, in many venues, in a range of conditions. I know the difference between a competent production and an exceptional one, and I know the rare third category, the kind that happens when every element is functioning at its best simultaneously, and the space between performers becomes alive in a way that is difficult to explain technically. That was the kind of show it was. I had one rehearsal pass at the opening sequence, and I learned the positioning and the cues, and I went out into the lights with 40 performers I had met that morning, and the woman I had thought for 2 years did not want me. She was to my left. Not directing from the floor, on stage, in the lights. She had not told me she would be performing as well as directing. I do not know why. Perhaps she knew I would ask questions she was not ready to answer, or perhaps she simply wanted me to see it, rather than know it in advance. The opening sequence built over 8 minutes toward a group formation that ended with her at the center and the rest of the performers arrayed in a pattern that made the space around her feel intentional. I was positioned at her immediate left. She did not look at me during the sequence. She performed with the full, concentrated presence she brought to everything. But in the final held position, 8 seconds, the lights at their peak, the music at its peak, the formation fully assembled, her hand, at her side, moved slightly. She turned her palm outward. It was not blocking. It was not choreography. It was a question. I moved my hand to meet hers. Not a full hold, just contact, fingertips, barely visible from the house. Something in her posture changed. Something that the audience would not have been able to see, but that I was close enough to feel. If you are still with me, and I need you to be, then you already know that the hand in the dark is not the moment I am thinking about when I think about this story. The moment I am thinking about is what happened after the show. Stay with me. The curtain call was long. It went the way Vale Grand curtain calls apparently always went. Several minutes, multiple returns, the kind of audience response that only happens when people have been genuinely transported. I stood in the formation and took my bow, and I did not look at her. I was managing something. I was not entirely sure what, but it required management. Backstage afterward was the organized chaos of a post-show wind-down, costume changes, equipment checks, the gradual dispersal of 40 people, all processing the same 90 minutes in their own private way. Several of the Vale Grand performers said things to me. Warm things, generous things about the aerial spot and the opening sequence. I thanked them. I meant it. She found me in the corridor near the east stage door. She was still in her show coat. She had a coffee, and she held it out to me before I had asked for one. I took it. "How do you take it?" she said. "Light," I said. "2 sugars." She looked at the cup. "I guessed light," she said. "No sugars. I can get another." "This is fine," I said. She looked at me with a small expression I was beginning to learn the territory of. "That is very diplomatic," she said. "I am managing several things at once," I said. "Tell me what you are managing," she said. I looked at her. 26 months of the wrong story, I said. A show I did not expect to be in tonight. That was the best 90 minutes I have had on a stage in 2 years. And you, standing in a corridor holding coffee you did not know how I take. I stopped. It is a lot for a Thursday. Something that was not quite a smile, but was headed in that direction, moved across her face. Lena, she said. Yes, I said. I would like to correct 26 months of the wrong story, she said, if you will let me. That is going to take longer than a Thursday, I said. I know, she said. I have time. She told me everything she knew about Marin over the following week. Not defensively. She laid it out the way she did everything, clearly, in sequence, without self-protection. Marin had been with the company for 4 years. She had been competent. She had also, it became clear over the course of a review that Corinna initiated the week I arrived, been slowly and quietly managing Corinna's personal life in the way that people sometimes manage the lives of individuals they have feelings for, not openly, not with any acknowledged intent, but through a series of small decisions that redirected things away from what Corinna actually wanted and toward what Marin preferred. The letter she had sent me was not the only instance. It was the most significant one. I should have seen it, Corinna said. We were in the main stage rigging bay, which I had been visiting every morning for the week I remained at the Cavendish. The Vale Grand's run overlapped with the Crescent's last 2 nights, and I had negotiated a guest arrangement that let me perform with both companies, which my director had agreed to with the specific expression of someone who understood that an invitation from the Vale Grand Circus was not the kind of thing you stood between a performer and. You trusted your manager, I said. That is not a failure. I let someone make decisions about my life without reviewing them, she said. That is at least a partial failure. Then it is a very human one, I said. She looked at me. You are being generous, she said. I am being accurate, I said. You are not the one who sent me a letter in your name that you did not write. She was quiet for a moment. No, she said. But I am the one who believed, for 26 months, that you had walked away, and she stopped, started again. I did not look for you. I told myself it was what you had chosen, and that I did not have the right to question a person's choices. And I think, she looked at the rigging overhead. I think that was also partly fear, dressed as respect. I looked at her. Fear of what? I said. Of being wrong, she said. About what I thought I saw in that rehearsal room, about what I thought was happening between us in those 11 minutes. She held my gaze. I had been very certain about very few things in the years between my predecessor leaving me this company and the morning you auditioned, and you were one of them. And when Marin told me you had declined, the simplest explanation was that I had misread the whole thing. You had not, I said. I know that now, she said. You knew it then, I said. She was quiet. Yes, she said. I think I did, and that made it worse. I need you to stay with me right here, because this is the moment I want you to understand. Not the Thursday dressing room, not the show, not even the corridor with the wrong coffee. This conversation, in the rigging bay, is the one that everything was building toward. Keep watching. I have a question, I said. Ask it, she said. If Marin had not sent the letter, if I had received your actual offer and said yes, what did you think was going to happen? She held my gaze for a long moment. I thought, she said, that you would join the company, and I would see you every day in rehearsal, and I would spend an indeterminate amount of time being very professional about what I was actually thinking, and eventually, something would happen that made the professional approach untenable, and then we would have a much earlier version of this conversation. She paused. I thought we'd have more time. It's strange how something can feel so permanent and then one day, it's just gone. And now? I said. Now I think 26 months was a very expensive delay, she said, and I would like to not waste any more time on distances that do not need to exist. I looked at her. That is the most direct thing you have said to me, I said. I have been working up to it, she said. I noticed, I said. And, she said. And I thought about the 11 minutes after the audition, which I had replayed more times than I had ever admitted to anyone. I thought about the hand in the dark during the opening sequence and the way her posture had changed when I answered it. I thought about the wrong coffee she had held out to me anyway, with the expression of someone who was choosing to offer rather than wait to be asked. "And," I said, "I think you should know that the moment I walked into that rehearsal room 2 years ago and saw you standing at the back with your arms crossed, I thought, this woman is going to change everything." She was very still. "I thought that," she said, "about you." "I know," I said. "I know that now." She offered me a position with the Vale Grand the following Monday. Formal, documented, processed through her new company manager, with a copy sent to me directly, and another held at the main office, and a third sent to my legal address, because she was, as she put it, taking no further chances with paper. I gave my notice to the Crescent on Tuesday. My director shook my hand and said he would have been insulted if I had done anything else. The transition took 3 weeks. In those 3 weeks, I lived in the slightly unreal space of someone whose life is between its previous shape and its new one. I finished my final shows with Crescent. I arranged my apartment. I had conversations with Corinna every evening, sometimes practical, about logistics and scheduling, and sometimes not. She called me on a Wednesday, and we talked for 2 hours about nothing that could be classified as professional, and I sat on my bed afterward and thought, this is what it was supposed to feel like from the beginning. This specific texture of conversation, this specific person, this specific ease, this sense that the distance between us was something we were choosing to close, rather than something we were waiting to have closed for us. When I joined the Vale Grand, she did not announce the relationship. She did not need to. The company had watched us in the rigging bay every morning for 2 weeks and had drawn accurate conclusions without any input from either of us. Camille, the Vale Grand's senior acrobat, who I met on my first official day, caught me in the costume room on my second morning and said, with the specific warmth of someone who has been watching their ringmistress be alone for a long time, "It is very good that you are here." "Thank you," I said. "She is better when she is not managing everything alone," Camille said. "She does not admit that, but she is." "I know," I said. Camille looked at me for a moment. "Yes," she said, "I think you do." The first show I performed with the Vale Grand as a full company member was the opening night of the spring residency. 800 seats, full house. The kind of opening night that the Vale Grand's reputation generated reliably. Audiences who arrived with high expectations and stayed to have them exceeded. I had been in company rehearsals for 2 weeks. I knew the material. I knew the rigging, the cues, the positioning. What I did not know, until 30 minutes before the show, was what she had added to the program. She found me in the wings before the opening sequence. She was in her show coat. She looked at me for a moment. "The opening sequence has a change," she said. "What change?" I said. "You are performing beside me," she said. "Not in formation, beside me. The sequence has been reworked to make that its center." I looked at her. "When did you rework it?" I said. "This week," she said, quietly, a small movement of her expression, not quite a smile but very close. I wanted to see the effect. "You could have told me," I said. "I could have," she said. "I wanted to show you instead." She offered her hand. I took it. We walked out into the lights together. The sequence was different. She had rebuilt it around a central axis of two people moving in parallel through the opening 8 minutes, mirroring and diverging and meeting again, the rest of the company arrayed around them in patterns that made the central relationship the structural point. I did not know the choreography, because there was no choreography. She had told the company to respond to us, to build the formation around where we were. We moved through the opening like a conversation, not performed, actual. The audience went very quiet, not the quiet of waiting, the quiet of witnessing. When the held position came, she did not turn her palm outward this time. She reached across and took my hand fully, clearly, with the house lights at full, and 800 people watching, and the entire Vale Grand Company arranged around us in the kind of formation that makes a statement. And she held it. The music hit its resolution. The lights held. 800 people made a sound I have heard many times since, and which never becomes ordinary. She kept holding my hand through the bow. She kept holding it off stage. She kept holding it in the wings while the show reset for Act 1, and she finally let go, only when we had to go to our separate positions, and she looked at me with an expression I had been cataloging since the corridor outside the east stage door, and which I now understood completely. "The show is good," I said. "The show is very good," she said. "But that is not what I was thinking about." "I know," I said. "Me neither." A year after that opening night, the Vale Grand Spring Residency was the highest attended single company run in the Cavendish Pavilion's history. Corinna mentioned it once, matter-of-factly, in the same tone she used for everything that mattered to her, measured, without performance. The paired opening sequence had become the company's signature. It had been photographed and written about and discussed in ways that I still found slightly disorienting, and which she found, I think, privately satisfying. She came in early every morning. So did I. The rigging bay before rehearsal was our time. Coffee, the quiet, the space to be in the thing we had built without also running it. She brought mine correctly now. Light, 2 sugars. She had asked once, remembered permanently, and never gotten it wrong since. One morning, about 14 months after that Thursday evening, she came in with a diary. Not a rehearsal diary, a personal one, small, worn at the spine. She set it on the equipment trunk between us. "This is from the week of your audition," she said. I looked at it. "You kept a diary?" I said. "Briefly," she said. "That week and a few surrounding it. I stopped when..." A pause. "When I believed you had declined." She did not open it. She just left it on the trunk between us. "You can read it," she said. "Or not. I am not requiring it. I just..." She looked at the rigging. "I wanted you to know it exists. What I wrote that week, that what I told you I was thinking, was not something I constructed after the fact." I looked at the diary. I thought about what it must have cost her to bring it. To put it between us on a Tuesday morning in the quiet of the rigging bay, and leave the choice with me. "I believe you," I said. She looked at me. "I know," I said. "I know what you were thinking that week. I was thinking it too." I paused. "I do not need the documentation." Something in her face did the thing it did sometimes. Not the professional near expression, not the controlled authority, but the unguarded version that I had learned was always there and had never stopped being there, even in the years we both had the wrong story. She picked the diary back up. "All right," she said. "We drank our coffee," she said, after a while. "I have been thinking about the spring program." "Tell me," I said. She told me, and I listened, and I made notes in my terrible handwriting that she had started calling terrible with affection rather than precision, and by the time the rest of the company arrived, we had a draft of something new, something built for 2 from the beginning this time. I think about the Thursday evening she walked into my dressing room. The wrong coffee, the right person, the 26 months that should not have existed, and the hour in the rigging bay where they were finally, properly, dismantled. I think about what I would have done differently, if I could, whether I would have found her sooner, sought her out, refused to accept the letter as final. I run the version of events where I drove back to the audition city 2 years earlier and knocked on her door and said, "I think there has been a mistake," and then I stop running it, because I do not know if we would have been ready. I do not know if I would have had the clarity, at 23, to hold something that delicate without the weight of the distance to make me understand its value. I do not know if she would have known yet that some of the ways she protected herself were also walls around the things she actually wanted. We arrived at each other on a Thursday, in a corridor, with the wrong coffee and the right words, and we arrived there after 26 months of separately becoming the version of ourselves who could do this properly. I would choose the Thursday again. I would not choose the 26 months, but I would choose the Thursday and everything after it without hesitation. What started as something lost became something found, and we built it this time on ground that belonged to us from the beginning. So that is the story. Almost all of it. Almost. There is something Corinna told me last week that I have been sitting with since she said it. We were in the rigging bay, early, the usual quiet, and she said, not as an announcement, not as a confession, just in the tone of something she had been thinking about and was finally ready to say out loud. Marin was not the only one who saw it. The week of your audition. I looked at her. Callum saw it, she said. My technical director. He was in the room that day. A pause. He told me, after Marin left, that he had always thought the rejection letter was wrong, that it did not match what he saw in the room. He said something. I said. He said it to Marin, she said. At the time, he told her directly that he thought I had made a different decision. And? I said. And she told him he had misread the situation and that I had made myself clear. I looked at Corinna. He believed her, I said. He believed her, she said. Until Marin left. And then he was not sure what to do with what he knew, because he thought too much time had passed. She paused. He came to me 6 months ago. He told me all of it. 6 months ago, I said. Yes. And you have been thinking about it for 6 months, I said. Yes. Why are you telling me now? I said. She was quiet for a moment. Because Callum told me something else, she said. Something he saw that morning. Something that I want to tell you in the right way. And I have been trying to find the right way for 6 months, and I think I am almost there. She looked at me. I will tell you soon. Tell me what it is, I said. When I have the right words, she said. I looked at her, at the expression I had learned completely, every version of it, and this one, this specific one, I had not seen before. Corinna, I said. Soon, she said. I promise. She picked up her coffee. I picked up mine. And we sat in the quiet of the rigging bay, which was our space, which we had built from a Thursday evening, and a wrong coffee, and 26 months that should not have existed, and I thought, whatever Callum saw that morning, whatever she has been holding for 6 months trying to find the right words, I think I already know. And if I am right, then this story did not begin on a Thursday evening in a dressing room. It began much earlier than that. If you have been with me through all of this, if you are still here, I need you in the comments right now. What do you think Callum saw? What is the thing she has been trying to find the right words for? Because I have my answer. And if it is what I think it is, then what she tells me next changes everything about where we began. Like this video if you want to be there when she finally says it. Subscribe, because that conversation, the one she has been building toward for 6 months, that is the next one. I will see you there.